The Lord is, ooh, yes, a keeper. He able to carry you through. Yeah. The Lord will cover you from danger seen and unseen. Yes, He will. He'll do it for you. Yes, He will. Hold it if you don't mind.
He told me that God had called him to preach. And I was so surprised. I think that was in 1974 that he told me that. And he would begin his change. And it would be the next year, in 1975, that he and I would get married.
The first time I met Pastor Campbell was, like I say, back at Fallen Run Missionary Baptist Church. I was the pianist, the musician at that time, and he came to be pastor. As a matter of fact, I joined Fallen Run Church under him. He was young, he was energetic, and he could preach. He was dynamic. He loved his family. I remember him, Pat, his wife, and they had 2 children, Lorenzo and Shireen.
Most people think, oh, you're a pastor's kid, everything's so restricted and, you can't live. But one thing I can say from personal experience is that it's not a bad thing.
Yes, it's hard because, people used to always call me son, pastor's son. Pastor's son, always the worst ones, but like I say, it was good, it was enjoyable. Because, I got to call my dad, that's my dad, Pastor Campbell, so.
From the time he was a young teenager, he often was directing the choir. He was often helping the pastor, what they call today an armor bearer. He would go with him to all the different sessions, and by the time he would get into ministry, it was not surprising because he had often sat at the feet of many ministers.
Well, now, I can remember we went on a trip to Philadelphia to another church. And I have pictures of him teasing Pat. He was a teaser. He was trying to kiss her and she was trying to shy away. So I don't recall any specific things, but all I can say right now is that he is a person. He is easily approachable. He has charisma.
People always wanted to hear him sing. He always sung. He always danced. He learned to dance. He danced in the spirit from a young guy. When I met him, he was dancing. Probably that knee at times is what keeps him from dancing now.
I believe his greatest legacy, or one of the greatest things that should be remembered about him in this legacy, is his passion and his willingness to serve, because nobody drags him to do anything. He chooses to do and he continues to do. My parents, my dad, they're givers, and they will give you the shirt off their backs and go find another one if that's what you need. So I want that to be remembered.
Every church he went to helped him and taught him and prepared him for the next church. I can only sit now back and see that path, as each church was unique in what he learned from them, and I find that it helped him and he began to grow. Initially, with that church, it was New Mount Sinai Church, and I remember how that was started up. It was sort of like a startup ministry. And he worked at it with all his heart. I mean, he gave it everything he had. Our automobile, we bought a bus to transport the people instead of a car. And he put a lot of his own money into the church. I did too. He wasn't paid at that time. I never did even think about that.
I met TW Campbell probably back in 1985. He came to Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church, he and his wife. They were new to Fayetteville, looking for a church. And I think if the story goes as I can remember, he was at KFC on Bragg Boulevard, asked the lady where a church was, and she told him Mount Sinai. He came on over, and from there, a great relationship was formed between my father, Aaron Johnson, and TW Campbell. And TW became a son of thunder, which is biblical. In Mark and in John, Jesus called the disciples the sons of thunder. And so all of the associate ministers that came up under Aaron Johnson were known as the Sons of Thunder. Matthew Rouse, who pastors in the city, was former executive secretary for the Union Missionary Baptist Association, is a Son of Thunder.
Dr. Johnson put a group of us that came through Mount Sinai, TW, Garland Pierce, and myself, those three, I can remember the three of us. He said that we were sons of thunder, that whenever he wanted to wake the church up on Sunday morning, he said that he'll get one of us to preach because we were the sons of thunder, and we get in and say we were young and we could get them energized. So as a matter of fact, I talked to Dr. Johnson the other night. He said, keep on doing what you're doing, Thunder. This is the second time I heard that this year. Yeah, we were called the Sons of Thunder, but TW still got it.
I believe if you're looking for a definition of a pastor, it should be in the dictionary, Reverend TW Campbell on the side with his picture, because he is a true man of God. I learned a great deal on his ministry. He did so many things for me. And so he has been an inspiration for me in pastoring my church. And he's been there every step of the way.
If you need a hand, he'll give you both hands. I saw something one time that, I thought was very intriguing with TW. It was my anniversary, one of my anniversaries, but anyway, Dr. Johnson was there, and TW had a beautiful tie on that Sunday. And so Dr. Johnson said during the hallway out, he said, son, boy, that's a beautiful tie. And TW said, you want it? He said, that's your tie. He whipped that tie off, folded it, and handed it to her. I'm like, wow. And then reached in his pocket for the hanky, and took the hanky. He said, here's the set. And I'm like, wow. Because I've never seen anybody do that. But Dr. Johnson was saying, no. He said, take it. And he did. So that's the kind of person he is. Reach out. You can't have a better person. This church has a jewel. I mean, a rare jewel, because you don't find pastors like him.
He grew up loving people from day one and even until now. He says always, pastors need to get among the sheep. They need to smell like the sheep. He mean that pastors have to connect with the sheep to be a good pastor. After 50 years, what would I give to him greatest connecting, being among the sheep, smelling like the sheep is what he calls it.
Pastor or not, first things first, he is a man, he's a husband, and he's a father. So his title as a pastor didn't make him that guy to me. He's always been that guy, even at my big age now, I tell people, that's my main man. So it wasn't a realization of him being that guy, because what I saw and what I feel to be amazing about him is the same love that he shows at home, the same love that he gives to his children, his grandchildren, his wife, is the same love that he shows to the people that he serves. So it's almost like extended family. One thing I can say, when I was going through in life, one thing my dad always told me, he said, if we're gonna struggle, we're gonna do it together. I was at a point in life, I had moved with my parents in Memphis, and I didn't know what was next. And he stopped me one day in the kitchen, one of my favorite places, and he said to me, if we're gonna struggle, we're gonna do it together. And that gave me kind of a reassurance, like, I'm not out here by myself, because for me, anybody who knows me knows that I like to do things on my own. So relying on somebody else, even though it's my parents, is kind of, tough for me. But for him to say those words, and I don't think he knows how much that resonated with me, but it was always the reassurance that I got you.
I met Pastor Campbell, Brother Campbell, back in 1990 while we were working at Fort Bragg, as Director of Public Works, over 30 years ago. He's always been a spiritual person for me. He had been a person who, one of the lowest points of my life, back in September of 1996, when I lost my grandfather, Mr. Elmo Wright. He basically picked me up and gave me some encouraging words, and I never forgotten that over the years. But Pastor Campbell, you've definitely been a pastor confidant for me, and more like a brother for me.
And during 50 years, there is no retirement. So keep doing what you're doing, and you're just so valuable for men that are still in the ministry. So even if I can say, keep doing what you're doing, because there's no retirement. Even boxers, when they get to a certain age, they can't box or get in the ring and go to rounds, but they can coach. And they can say some things that will encourage. So you can get in there and tell them, look, hit him with a left, hit him in the right, hit him with an uppercut. You just be in the corner and help us fight this fight. For the Bible lets us know that we need to fight the good fight of faith. So I say, Pastor Campbell, keep fighting, even if you got to get in the corner, because there is no retirement for somebody such as valuable as you, because you are a valuable and needed person at such a time as this.
Well, it's not so much the words that we would give TW. It's the words that TW would give us. That man, that preacher, that pastor, that Christian, that leader, he's filled with an abundance of wisdom and inspiration that he pours out. So I always get a pleasure of either on the phone, talking with them face to face about, hey, what's going on in ministry, what you're doing at the church. And he begins to pour out to me, Jamel, that this is what the Lord is doing. So I'll be real curious to find out what the Lord is saying to TW Campbell after 50 years. So I can only say to him, keep listening to the Lord and keep walking in the anointing and the calling. For truly, as a minister of the gospel, you have been extremely fruitful. As I sit here in this sanctuary, and for the short time that you've been here in this particular ministry, to see how it has flourished, Keep relying on the joy. Keep relying upon the inspiration of Christ to do ministry.
I would say, Pastor, uh, lighten up on yourself a little bit. Don't take everybody's problems, because I believe that's what he does. After 50 years, you deserve a little bit of rest for yourself. And I know sometimes you get it, but then knowing you, if you're somebody to call, he's gonna come. So I would tell him to lighten up a little bit and let the next 50 years be a pleasure, a little bit of work for more pleasure.
After 50 years of ministering, and see, I'm on this coattail. I'm in my 47th year, and I would tell him to do what the Lord called him. Stay on the wall. Continue. There's still lost souls to be saved. Continue to encourage the people to stay in the will of God. To encourage the people to, if they can help somebody, take his motto, if I can help somebody, and he's that type person, a hands-on person. Some folks say, if you need me, call him, but he's one that sometimes he think you need him, he'll call you. And I would tell him to continue doing what he's doing, that the Lord has blessed him tremendously, and continue to be a blessing to God's people.
In this walk, I just want to encourage you that the things that you've done have not been in vain. There are people out here that are still moving and pressing forward and going forward because of you, and I'm one of those people. There are people you have encouraged by just a simple smile or a simple word, because anybody knows that you don't typically come across him and he doesn't say something. So it could be, we're at Fuller's and my children said all the time, Papa know this person, and here's this one. And there's so many people who, even if I'm just out, like, oh, you Campbell's daughter, I am. Yeah, he's such and such and such. And just to hear those things, I would just want him to know that you've encouraged people more than you'll ever know. You've pushed people to keep going, even when you haven't felt like it. I've seen my dad in a time when he was sick or when he had surgery, and that was probably the hardest time for me to see him in a manner of not being able to do. But even in that time, he was trying to make me laugh because he knew that I couldn't take it. I cried. I'm not gonna tell you a story. I cried to see him down, but he still had a way to make me laugh in his time of pain. So I would say, Dad, keep going. We love you. We have you, period. Whatever it is that we can do to encourage you to keep going along this path, we're here. I might be able to get you a little meal or so along the way, but just know that we are your family and we are so proud of you and everything that you've accomplished. And until God tells you to sit down, you still have more work to do.
Yeah, so I saw Tommy Wayne Campbell go from the very beginning. Has he had ups and downs? Yes, many times. Almost leveled to the ground. Almost things happened that almost leveled me. But through it all, boy, we got stronger in God. We got stronger in faith. Through it all, we learned that God can take you from nowhere to greater. I consider this to be greater in Tommy Campbell's life. We called him, his family calls him Chick Wayne. That was his nickname, Chicken Wayne, because he liked chicken wings. He still does. But I would say in this 50 years, truly God has led him. Many souls, I've seen so many souls saved. I've seen people changed. I've seen people rededicate their lives. I've seen weddings. I've seen marriages. And I've seen funerals and funerals. But through it all, I've seen him up. I've seen him down. I've seen him sick. I've seen him in health. Even now, the struggles, he goes through every struggle. Almost like a leaping, for some reason I see a runner leaping. leaping over life's hurdles. 50 years. If one thing Tommy Campbell knows, and I'm doing this video, he knows God did it. Nothing of his own. Nothing, I believe in learning and all of that. All of that's fine. But God, the calling from God is greater than any paper you'll ever get written, that'll ever get written for you.
He ain't never left me alone. Hey, no. I am depending on you. Sometimes I tell him, well, ain't nobody but me and Jesus. Lord, I ain't got long to sing, but let's just go ahead and tell the Lord, I'm depending, I'm depending, I'm depending, I'm depending.